Hi, Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast, and this is the sixth of my eight pieces looking at the NFL divisions post the draft and analysing how they might pan out next season as it stands right now. So in this piece, I'm looking at the NFC North, and let's start with the Chicago Bears. The Bears won this division last season against three teams that were all fancied to be good teams, and indeed were. So it'll be tough for them to retain again in 2026, but can they do so? Safety, the D line, and the heart of their O line were the areas they looked at via free agency. Garrett Bradbury being a notable addition, um, Devin Bush and Kobe Bryant being the other two. So um, that left them still looking for strong safety in the draft, along with further work on the O line and at edge. Cornerback and slot receiver might have been other positions to consider too. So strong safety Dylan Thieneman being added in round one and centre Logan Jones in round two made a strong start to this draft for the Bears. Round three and four saw wide receiver Xavier Thomas and cornerback Mali Mohammed cover off two of their other needs. Excuse me, I've got a very croaky throat this morning. Now, Xavier Thomas was one of my late round potential value picks, but there's the clue, late round. But the Bears took him in round three, so they obviously had a similarly high opinion of him than me. Um, but how he fits in, I mean, potentially as a kick returner too, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out now. And Sam Roosh, who looks to be one of the best blocking tight ends, came in to help the O line probably more than as a receiver as well in terms of his blocking. Further depth at inside linebacker and on the D line rounded out their draft, leaving edge rusher as a possible opportunity missed in this draft by the Bears. Detroit Lions go up next. The Lions were fancied to win this division last season and maybe more, but with the Bears being led by their former defensive coach Ben Johnson taking the divisional title, head coach Dan Campbell needs to show that he's the brains behind the operation in order to find a way to get their title back in 2026. Centre was a major issue last season, and they have addressed that via free agency. But this draft saw them looking to improve at edge on their O line in the secondary and an inside linebacker and possibly wide receiver. So Blake Miller at offensive tackle and Derek Moore at edge were two good picks in the opening two rounds. Then round four saw inside linebacker Jimmy Rolder and cornerback Keith Abney being added. The secondary still remains a concern, especially at cornerback, as does inside linebacker. And for me, the Bears had a more productive all round draft than the Lions. So the Green Bay Packers. The Packers were pretty quiet free agent wise prior to the draft, and with no first round pick at their disposal, needed to address needs at edge on the interior of their O line, cornerback, backup running back, and kicker in this draft. I know Brandon McManus has just been released in the last couple of days. Brandon Cisse at cornerback, Chris McClellan at defensive end, and outside linebacker Danny Dennis Sutton took edge and cornerback off that list. Interior O lineman Jaeger Burton was their fifth round pick before they added another cornerback and kicker in round six. So they came out of the draft having made some decent additions, but still looking thin at the heart of their own line and possibly at running back behind Josh Jacobs. Although who am I thinking of? There's a guy who's been on the injured list for a long time who's might be coming back this season. Maybe they've got hopes that he'll fill that gap, as it were. And again, waiting for me a computer to kick into action here. So who am I thinking of? Who's the running back I'm thinking of? Da, 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 da. No, can't remember who it is, but never mind. Marshawn Lloyd. So, yeah, that's it for the Packers. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings. Apart from the notable addition of Kyler Murray, the Vikings were another team that made relatively few moves pre-draft. So they had centre, defensive tackle, safety, edge, inside linebacker, tight end, wide receiver, and running back on a fairly lengthy list of needs. They took Caleb Banks and Dominique Orange in rounds one and three as defensive tackles, although Banks may be deployed at defensive end by the Vikings. Between those two picks, Jake Golday was added at inside linebacker as the Vikes went heavy on their defense early in this draft. Not a bad idea as they were far from great against the run last season. With their two complementary picks at the end of round three. They had a defensive tackle Caleb Tiernan and safety Jacoby Thomas, all of which should improve them defensively, but does not do much for them offensively, which left centre, tight end, wide receiver, and running back not being addressed. Wide receiver has since been addressed in significant fashion with the add-in of Juan Jennings, which potentially now gives them Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and Juan Jennings, enough J's in there to keep you occupied, as one of the premier wide receiver trios in the league for whoever ends up at quarterback, Caleb Murray or JJ McCarthy. And we're running back Damon Claiborne in the sixth round being the only move they made in those areas later in the draft. They will need a better season from CJ Hawkinson at tight end to make a step up on offense. Although, like I said, this last edition of Jennings in the last couple of days is going to be huge. And it could be huge for Kyler Murray if he gets the starting quarterback gig too. So to sum up the NFC North, the Bears had 11 wins last season, with the other three teams all finishing above 500 on 9 and 8. So we can expect this division to be tough to win and be highly competitive again in 2026. The in-division games will therefore have huge significance, and this is really wide open right now, although the Vikings might have just made a significant move by adding Jennings. Um, but if I was forced to pick right now, I'd probably take the Bears just. But you could really take any of these teams to win this division next season. So that's it for the NFC North. It's going to be a great division to watch next season. Really interesting. The next up for me will be the NFC South. See you soon.